This is the story of a man who wrote a letter to God, seeking God's intervention in their agitation for freedom. How was the letter sent to God? And did God really respond to the letter? Come along, come, let us seek the answers. The man stood to his full height, stared the British colonialist in the face and asked him to leave so that Africans could worship their own God. He was called Elijah Masinde Wanameme okhwa Mwasame, that is Elijah Masinde of Nameme, the son of Mwasame. He was a prophet, a leader, a footballer, and above all, a freedom fighter. Born in 1908 in Maeni, Kimilili in Bungoma County, Elijah was irritated by Kenya-Uganda railway snaking its way through Bukusuland. He even started his own religion, Dini ya Musambwa, to agitate for social, political and religious freedom. When Elijah foresaw that the white man was about to leave, people were cynical. The white man was hot on Elijah's heels, baying for his blood. Elijah dug a trench in Chesamis and hid underground just like a mole. The white man could not trace him until someone informed on Elijah. He was a wondrous man. He surrounded himself with a group of consecrated men. He had an aide-de-camp called Walumoli, who died just the other day. Walumoli's visions were marvelous. He would just enter into a trance and tell you exactly what you had just done before coming to him. Men of that caliber are the ones who surrounded Elijah and contributed to his prophecy. For instance, when they were in Dini ya Musambwa, that religion was beyond singing and dancing. It was a congregation of visionary men, men who would foresee the future. Elijah and his consecrated aides would go all the way up to Mount Elgon. The peak of the mountain is snow-capped. It is not easy to access that point. He would do daring things to prove his prophecy. Elijah fought side by side with Mau Mau's Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi for Kenya's independence. However, he was later jailed by Mzee Jomo Kenyatta for about 15 years. This was after he was accused of fomenting religious violence. In his extreme agitation for independence, Elijah wrote a letter addressing God. He used to select holy men who had no flaws to climb with him on top of a mountain. At some point along the journey, he would ask them, "How do you want us to live in this world?" The men would suggest to him how they felt people should live. He then wrote a letter and placed it in a dent inside a cave. Then proceeded to pray to God. "Let us petition our case to God. We shall get answers." They took a sacrificial goat and other possessions and scaled the mountain. Up there, they slaughtered the goat and prayed to God. After resting, they descended to where they left the letter. They found a reply to the letter. This really motivated him because he had lamented how the British had murdered Africans, yet still living among them. God's response was that the British were going at last. "Fear not, soldier on." He addressed God in the letter. He addressed God because Musambwa brethren worship God, and the prayer was to seek God's intervention. Before going in the sight of God, one has to sanctify himself. You heard the story of God and Moses. When he called Moses, he instructed him to take off his sandals because the place was holy. You have to be sanctified before making your prayer. You pray to God whom you can't see, but the place is holy. No human goes there anyhow. But them, in their dreams, they saw it fit to pray there. In their dreams, they received visions. The same way in the letter, God assured them that the white man was about to go. The caves that Elijah and his followers visited are found in Mount Elgon. Locals, that is the Sabaoth, were awed by his deeds and wished to scale the mountain and offer their prayers too. Elijah granted them their wish, and they set out on an adventurous journey. After they descended to a flat point, the Sabaoth approached them, requesting to scale the mountain. They said, "You normally cross through our land, yet we have never gone up there." The Sabaoths, do not climb the mountain. Elijah and his men allowed them. They advised them on how to climb the mountain. They carried a sacrificial goat and moved up, but they could not make it to the peak. You don't let out all your secrets, and that is what Elijah did. He withheld some important information. For instance, he did not disclose his post office within the cave, hoping that they would receive visions about it from God. That did not happen, however, and when they climbed, they were unable to make it to the peak of the mountain. Along the way, they found themselves covered in mist and fog. They waited for it to clear, but to no avail. They tried to scale the mountain on 3 different occasions, unsuccessfully. Mount Elgon is known among Musambwa congregants as Mount Zion, meaning a place where God resides. Elijah introduced rules to be strictly observed by the congregants. During prayers in a shrine known as Nameme, the congregation faces Mount Zion. Women sit down with their legs stretched while men bow with their left knee touching the ground. The prayers made are done in a chanting with the format of call and response. The leaders utter some verses of the prayer, while the rest of the congregation respond with other verses. Just like Christians, they use the Holy Bible but tend to ignore the part of Jesus Christ. Elijah was resistant to the colonial rule, and therefore anything that came with it was discouraged by him and the Dinia Musambwa at large. He was against the Western education, as he believed that it made the sons and daughters of the soil arrogant and thereby respecting their own values. That is Elijah for you. They came back from Mount Zion and embarked on agitation for freedom. They fought fiercely, knowing that God was on their side. In his prophecies, he had warned the Bukusu that our people would come and bring about confusion that will make them abandon their ways. That our people shall come with goodies that will make you abandon your culture as Bukusu. We can see that today, orchestrated by foreign religions and business. During his time, he would wedge a bottle inside a tight skirt worn by a woman to rip it. He would flog women for wearing a knee-high tight skirt. In his dealings, he was very extreme, but Walmoli would advise him to be moderate. Elijah Wanameme, just like any other Bokoso elder, was polygamous. He had 6 wives. The prophet died in 1987, an abandoned freedom fighter, having been jailed severally by Jomo Kenyatta and Moi regimes. Thanks for watching Culture Hub TV. More episodes coming up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video with your friends.